Oliver and his friends are now getting ready to sleep after their meal in their new studio. They express their gratitude to Katie for inviting them to come here. Meanwhile, Katie herself is already fast asleep. Outside the labyrinth, specifically in the school area, Stacy decides to enter the labyrinth to confront Michelle. She wants to prove that she is not a substitute for Michelle. Behind them, a man who dueled with Tulio the other day is seen following Stacy and Faye into the labyrinth. The next morning, Nanao immediately asks Oliver to accompany her for practice. Since they already have a suitable location for training, Oliver doesn't mind helping. Before they start, Oliver suddenly asks something. He is curious if Nanao can use that technique again. The technique that Nanao used to cut off Vera's hand. Nanao replies that she can't do it again at all. However, Oliver is convinced that the technique cannot be done by mere chance. Putting that aside, Oliver suggests that Nanao focus on practicing her spells. However, Nanao asks for a sword duel with Oliver before they start. Oliver, of course, refuses. He says that Nanao must first learn to handle a spell duel. Oliver wants to guide Nanao until she can combine magic and sword techniques. That way, they will be fellow wizards in terms of name and abilities. Only after that can they have a sword duel. However, just as they are about to start, Guy suddenly screams. Upon checking, it turns out that Guy is shocked to see the troll brought by Katie. Katie explains that it was not she who brought this troll herself. Instead, it was Vera who did it. The others are, of course, immediately alert upon seeing Vera's presence. Meanwhile, Pete, who has just woken up, is searching for his glasses. Someone hands him his glasses, even though there should only be Pete in the room. After Pete puts on his glasses, he realizes that the one who handed them over is a walking, disembodied hand. Pete runs in fear to where Oliver and the others are. The living hand then lands on Vera. It turns out that Vera has turned her severed left hand, which was cut off by Nanao, into an artificial living creature. She calls it Milligan's hand, abbreviated as Millie Hand. While preparing tea, Michelle asked Vera seriously why she gave her studio to Katie. Vera replied that she was just investing in it. When Katie succeeds in her research, Vera will also get a share of it. In return, Katie's desire to take care of the troll can also be fulfilled here. Katie explained that she had obtained permission from the school to adopt the troll. The troll can now speak without fear. Katie named him Marco. Oliver then tried to ask if Marco knew Katie's other friends. Marco could name all of Katie's friends who were present here, especially Oliver, because Marco said Katie often talked about him. Katie immediately prevented Marco from discussing that. Afterward, Vera took them to a place that was the nearest entrance and exit to the labyrinth from the studio. However, because this labyrinth was unpredictable, they couldn't always pass through here. After explaining, Vera said her goodbyes and went through the entrance/exit that required her to dive down. Still enthusiastic, Katie invited the others to explore the labyrinth again since they already knew the way home. They didn't expect to bring a troll along for the labyrinth journey, let alone that the troll could also act as a guard. Suddenly, Michelle, who was leading the way, asked them to stop. If they continued, they would enter the second floor area of the labyrinth. The second floor was very different from the first floor. There, the environment was more extensive and complex, and the variety of magical creatures found there was greater. The second floor labyrinth was known as the Busy Forest. The others couldn't believe that there was a forest inside the labyrinth. However, this place was under the school. Michelle explained that this labyrinth was more like another dimension. Therefore, Michelle suggested they retreat for now. Before she could finish speaking, Stacy's voice suddenly interrupted them. She informed them that she had come to claim Michelle's medal. Stacy proposed a 2-on-2 battle. As usual, Nanao was immediately excited to hear this. Once again, someone else came to interrupt. That person was the man who had been following Stacy and Faye. He suggested a 3-on-3 battle instead. Michelle was slightly familiar with him, Joseph Albright. The Albright family was famous for producing many militant wizards. It could be said that Joseph was the top candidate for the strongest student in their year. It was no wonder he was interested in this contest. Actually, Joseph was only interested in fighting Nanao. He didn't care much about Michelle, let alone Oliver, whom he called trash. Michelle was upset when he referred to Oliver as trash, but Oliver asked her to stay calm. Oliver accepted the 3-on-3 battle. Then, Joseph said he would lead them to the battle arena. He wanted to fight on the second floor. Michelle naturally objected, especially since they were with their other friends. Marco offered to protect the others on the second floor so Michelle wouldn't have to worry. After everyone agreed, they followed Joseph. Upon reaching the second floor, they were naturally amazed to see a forest within the labyrinth. Shortly after, Joseph stopped because they had arrived at the battleground. Before starting, Joseph wanted this battle to use non-lethal spells only. The other participants had no objections to that. At that moment, Oliver had a proposal for Nanao and Michelle for the upcoming battle. After that, the three of them faced each other and chanted incantations. Michelle faced Stacy, Oliver faced Faye, and Nanao faced Joseph. When the battle began, Oliver immediately chanted Flash Wisp, causing Faye to be dazzled and lose her form. Before he knew it, Oliver was now facing Joseph. He didn't want to stay silent after being taunted by him. Given the circumstances, Faye had no choice but to battle Nanao. As Michelle fought with Stacy, she tried to make small talk, but Stacy seemed very reluctant. Michelle then asked why Stacy hated her so much. Annoyed, Stacy replied that Michelle wouldn't understand even if she were told. While they were talking, their battle appeared quite intense, even impressing Nanao. Faye explained that both of them had received training in the Risette school since childhood. By the way, the battle between Nanao and Faye had not yet started. Faye wanted to warn in advance that their battle would be boring. Immediately, Faye used Fragger to create smoke that obstructed Nanao's view. After that, Faye ran into the forest. Nanao now understood what Faye meant. She wanted to play a game of chase. Meanwhile, Joseph continued to refer to Oliver as trash after seeing his fighting style. However, Oliver remained confident in his ability to win. When Joseph swung his sword to attack, Oliver had already considered how to deflect the clash when their swords met. When the sword slightly deviated, Oliver would counterattack. However, it turned out that the plan he had just thought of didn't work at all. Joseph already knew that Oliver would use the encounter technique from the Lanoff school. For Joseph, Oliver's fighting style was too dull. His swordsmanship was just imitating what was in the books. Oliver tried to attack again. Joseph still considered it useless because he could predict Oliver's moves. Nevertheless, Oliver won in a test of endurance and managed to graze Joseph's cheek slightly. Oliver didn't mind even though Joseph had anticipated that he would use the heavy feather technique. However, Oliver was confident that Joseph didn't anticipate that the technique felt heavier than described in the book. Meanwhile, among the spectators, Katie was thinking about something. Earlier, Oliver had used a light bomb spell. At that moment, Katie caught a glimpse of the labyrinth's roof. She had a suspicion about this place. Inside the forest, Faye continued to struggle, even though she was only buying time to escape from Nanao. Eventually, Faye ended up in the same place as Stacy. Shortly after, Michelle, who was chasing Stacy, also arrived at the scene. According to Faye, they would lose if they continued like this. At that moment, Stacy asked Faye if she was willing to help her win. As her servant, Faye was willing to do anything for Stacy. In the past, Faye had actually gotten lost in Stacy's family territory after losing her parents. Stacy's father wanted to kill Faye, but Stacy prevented him and instead made Faye her servant. After that, Stacy immediately chanted Luna Plena to create artificial moonlight. Unexpectedly, Faye transformed into a werewolf. Michelle and Nanao's attacks were ineffective against Faye's current form. Stacy felt that she could surpass Michelle with this. She wanted recognition from her uncle Theodore. On the other hand, Joseph told Oliver to just run away and help his friend. However, Oliver would not do that, of course. He may not have anticipated Faye's werewolf strength, but Oliver believed that Michelle and Nanao could handle it on their own. Oliver would not show his back to Joseph. Back to Michelle, she was impressed by Stacy's current state. Stacy was willing to win by any means necessary. However, Michelle warned Stacy to release the transformation spell on Faye. If Faye could enroll at Kimberly as a student, it meant she wasn't a pure werewolf, but rather a half-werewolf. They were known to have many drawbacks, the most well-known being the pain during transformation. Suddenly, Nanao advised Michelle that this was not the time for compassion. Both of them were willing to sacrifice everything in this battle. They also understood the risk of pain and agony. If their opponents had made such a decision, it would be rude not to fight them with all their might as well. Michelle finally understood Stacy and Faye's determination. She apologized and wouldn't ask Faye to remove the transformation spell anymore. Instead, Michelle promised not to make Faye suffer for too long.